Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show, Team Chicago Challenge. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. My website is teamchicago.tv. We're at the Klairmont Collection in Chicago. This is a huge car museum on the northwest side of Chicago, Knox Avenue in Belmont. Easy to find. It's open to the public, I think, Wednesday through Sunday. And I'm here with the Roper steam-powered motorcycle. This is the real treasure of this museum. From my perspective, this was built in, this is a replica of the original, which is in the Smithsonian. It was built by William Edgars of Goshen, Connecticut. I'm going to look a little bit further into that, how many of these replicas were made. But think of this, a steam-powered motorcycle. So we'll be coming back and look at this also. My name is Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly show, Team Chicago Challenge. On YouTube, you can always search with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com, and I love to hear from my audience. First, we're going to look at 3 cars that are bold, sexy, and fast. This first one is a Rolls-Royce with 165 horsepower, 448 cubic inch V12 engine. This was originally built as a Rolls-Royce Phantom, but the bodywork could not be repaired, so Classic Auto Rebuilding Service in Wisconsin built this Aero Coupe. This coupe has got a 4-speed synchro mesh manual gearbox and independent front suspension. This car could do 91 miles per hour in the quarter mile. And now we're looking at a 1937 Cord 812 Beverly sedan. It has front wheel drive and it is supercharged. E.L. Cord, the president of the company, said this was a combination of cutting-edge style and high performance. This car was built by the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Company in Auburn, Indiana. My dad told me he had a neighbor that owned a Cord, and they were high-performance cars, but my dad was also proud of his 1936 Ford with a V8. And now we're looking at a 1988 Santar Sierra concept car using the artwork from French Art Deco designs from the 30s and the 40s. It had a removable aluminum top. It came with either a Ford 351 Cleveland engine or a modified 400 V8. This car was called the Atlantis, and it was designed by Ron Santar Sierra. It has Lockheed hydraulic brakes, an automatic transmission, aluminum steering wheel, carbon fiber dash. This is a lovely, sexy car. Definitely bold and definitely fast. And as we look at a few cars on the north end of this museum, on the south end of this museum is the Made in Chicago room. And I'm going to meet up with the curator, Anna McCardo. I have a couple items I'm going to donate to their Made in Chicago museum within the museum. We are in the Made in Chicago museum room, which is part of the Klairmont Kollections, and it has all these items that were made in Chicago.
Correct.
Now, I have a lot of knowledge of the factories in Chicago and where everybody was, because I was Coffee Dan. So you got to understand, when I was a junior in high school, I started driving a coffee truck.
Okay.
So all these companies in Chicago, like Helene Curtis used to be at North Avenue in Costner. That was my 6:30 stop at night. Tootsie Toy was on Pulaski, like 700 North Pulaski. That was my 7 o'clock stop.
Okay.
Howard Foundry, who made huge pistons for like steamship or ocean liners when they had diesel engines. So that was my 8 o'clock stop. So I know all about industry. And then later on, Zenith became my lunch stop.
Okay.
So the Zenith factory at Dickens and Austin.
Okay.
That was my lunch stop. So one guy, this is 1976 now, so that was still going to Zenith into 1976. And one of the guys came out and said, man, you got to see the new TVs we're building for the bicentennial. So this was the TV. I think I paid like $65 for it. He took me inside, and so this is the bicentennial Spirit of 76 portable TV.
Wow.
That even said it can work with a battery, AC or battery. I don't know anything about any battery in this thing. But I know I used it back then, and so I cleaned it up. It's been sitting around now for 40-some years.
Wow.
And I want to donate this here because now we know this is definitely made in Chicago.
Yes.
At the end of the line, he even took me inside and showed me them making it.
Wow.
And then I ended up buying one, and he got me the good price too.
Yeah.
So, but it was like $60 at that time, and it portable. I think it was. This might even be color, so I can't quite remember.
Well, this will be definitely a perfect fit here at the Made in Chicago Museum exhibit. You know, the Made in Chicago Museum is actually an independent museum that is curated and founded by Andrew Klairmont.
Okay.
And he has acquired about over 400 items
Okay.
that were made and manufactured here in Chicago from 1970 and prior.
Right.
So, you know, you bring things like this and kind of you're stepping back in time, right? He was looking for a home for his museum, and we had this space available, and part of our Klairmont Kollections, this was actually like our clock room. And so as we were changing things here at the museum, and we thought we wanted to incorporate more of the Chicago history here in the museum, we thought it'd be a perfect fit for Andrew to come and bring his items here. So a lot of the things...
So he put most of these together
These
himself?
are all him, yes.
So
he didn't have any funding. He did everything on his own.
Right.
And so these were all the things that he's kind of acquired, and people have donated, and he's acquired throughout the years. So it's a highlight of the museum, and we really enjoy having it here. It's very nostalgic, and it brings you back to a certain time in your childhood that you remember maybe sitting around with your family watching TV shows, with, you know, the variety shows.
One here.
Yeah. So there's, you know, a bunch of different items here, but yeah, definitely it brings back some good memories. I remember, you know, you played with the antenna to get a good signal, and and sometimes, you know, you'd have to mess around with it just to get it going. But
and the tuner, and, you know, bright. I mean, modern TVs, I don't think you ever even touch brightness or contrast or
it all just comes done. So we really enjoy having this museum
Well, I'm also
here in
brought in my
Klairmont
mother's
Kollections.
mixer, which is probably from the research I did. Sunbeam started selling that mixer in 1949.
Wow.
Well, that's the year I was born. Maybe my mother went out and bought that brand new back then. You know, I know my mother used it all the time. You know, she used to make cakes and that. It was always part. And then I had a tenant, and I found that iron. I got a Sunbeam iron, also made in Chicago, and.
Well, people don't realize Chicago was a big manufacturing,
huge,
you know,
huge
industry here.
I mean, if you couldn't make it in Chicago, if you could make it in Chicago,
you could make it anywhere.
Right. There was plenty of jobs. The average immigrant, the average person could come to Chicago and have a job. I was talking to one guy, he said, if you walk down Lake Street from Oak Park all the way to Halstead, had a factory on both sides of the street. I mean, like Chicago Roller Skate Company was right there. This guy said you couldn't walk down Lake Street without someone wanting to grab you and give you a job. I mean, it was just, there was plenty of jobs. No, everybody worked in Chicago. I'm happy I came through that era when things were...
It was a fantastic time for sure. You know, very innovative ideas, and like just this building itself, like our museum, the Klairmont Kollections Automotive Museum, is housed in what used to be a printing warehouse. It was called W.F. Hall Printing, so like this right here kind of tells you about a little bit of the things that were printed here in Chicago. There was, you know, big
Ward's catalog right here.
Exactly. So we're like in the Montgomery Ward's kind of room. So Montgomery Ward's was printed here. One of the cool things that I thought was like the motor, where is it at? The Motor Trend magazine. So here we are in Automotive Museum. And this used to be a printing warehouse where they printed Motor Trend. So it kind of like the
it's a
full
great
circle.
tie-in.
Yeah.
And we're going to walk around.
Yes.
I'm going to look over. I'm going to look at. We're going to continue looking at the steam-powered motorcycle, which I think is the most valuable vehicle that you have in this museum.
Okay.
And then your
That's
Vespa. You know, Sears is a big Chicago company, and Sears
were.
was the largest distributor of Vespas in the country,
Yeah.
and probably most of those Vespas that you have up there. So
They
we're
were
gonna talk.
like the Amazon of the past, you know,
Well-
where you can order things. We have a Sears Roebuck here
Yeah,
also.
yes, yes.
And you could order through Sears catalog and you would build it yourself,
Right,
you know.
right.
So yeah.
You could Elvis Presley's house in
Graceland?
no, in God, I can't think of Tupelo
Okay.
was a Sears Roebuck shotgun house.
Wow.
Where you bought it from Sears, it was probably $1,700, and they would ship it on rail,
Isn't that
and then the
amazing?
person would build it. So, I
That's
mean, they
just-
sold everything.
They did.
Yes.
They really did. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Anna. I'm so happy I could donate something to this wonderful collection. And now we're looking at one of the Batmobiles that was based on the TV show. The TV show ran for 3 seasons, and they did 120 episodes. We spot this mannequin here of Batman, and it even looks like the star who was Adam West. This is a great looking replica. I believe they made a good number of these Batmobile replicas. This could have been one from the movie, but there was a good number of them that were built. But this is the first time I've ever seen the Bat Cycle, and this is from the movie that they made in 1966 called Batman. It's based on a Yamaha 250 Catalina with a sidecar, and in the sidecar is a little go-kart, mini go-kart. And if you watch the pickers, there was a collector, I believe, of automobiles, and he had one of these Robin go-karts, and he wanted a pretty penny for that. I don't think they bought it. So seeing this Bat Cycle with the go-kart is a very valuable piece from the 1960s Batman, the TV series, Batman, the movie. And another motorcycle, this one was built for the movie Tall Tales, which was about a young country boy who gets joined with Pico's Bill, Paul Bunyan, and John Henry. And it's supposed to be a steam-powered motorcycle. And the villain, I guess, was some developer that was trying to buy up land. The movie did not do so well, but here it is, the steam-powered motorcycle from the movie. And this here is what I came to see more than anything else in the museum. They have a replica of the Sylvester Roper steam motorcycle. Now, the first time I seen one was at the National Museum in Iowa. But that museum is now closed, and where that replica went, I have no idea. But this replica was built by Bill Eggers, and he owns William Eggers Restoration, and he made many replicas. So how many of these steam motorcycle replicas there are, I do not know. Now think about this. Sylvester Roper built this steam-powered motorcycle in 1867, 2 years after the Civil War. He was a better inventor than he was a salesman. But he has a steam boiler. He built the frame out of wood. He has some metal frame, 2 pistons that drive push rods with external flywheels. You can see the external flywheel as the piston pushes and pulls the push rods. We're looking at the boiler, which are to use wood or coal to bring the temperature of the water up, and when water boils, it causes steam. Steam expands. and that would push the pistons. So this motorcycle had 2 pistons. It's a 2-wheel vehicle, wooden wheels, iron tires. There's the foot peg on the front fork. Because it's got iron tires, I'm sure it did not go around corners very well. But in 1867, a 2-wheel vehicle made out of wood and metal. The water was held in the seat, which was probably a pigskin, sort of like a football, and the water was held in that seat. That's where the driver would sit, the rider, the boiler underneath, providing steam to the 2 pistons on either side. Even had the throttle and the brake. Pull back to open up the valve for more speed. Push forward, he had a little brake on the front wheel. But as you can see, this one here is in need of repair. But it is a very valuable replica, and this should be put in a better location in this museum. Now we're looking at footage that was sent to me from the Owlhead Transportation Museum in Maine. Owlhead, Maine. Ron Quebec sent me this footage that they shot. They have an operating Roper motorcycle. As you can see, the pistons go in and out, the external crank. As you can see it operating, the steam is built up, pushes the piston out, the flywheel forces the piston back in, 2 cylinders on either side, coal-fired boiler, 1867. What a valuable piece we have, and thanks to the museum in Maine for sending me this footage. Now, if you're in the motorcycle community and you know anything about raising money, GoFundMe, let me know, because we need to raise some money to get this Roper replica in the Klairmont Collection running again and in a proper location. You can always email me and I will respond if you know anything about raising money. As we can see, 2 pistons, 1 on either side. The steam builds up, pushes the rod out. The other one is pushing out, and then now the flywheel, the external flywheel that you're looking at, pushes the piston back in. Last summer at Black Hawk Farms, I met a distant relative of Sylvester Roper, a motorcycle racer, and an old friend, Dave Roper.
I'm Dave Roper, been racing motorcycles for 52 years.
Just like me. Okay. Now, the one thing that I have to ask you about is I was at the National Museum, Sylvester Roper, steam-powered motorcycle, probably the first steam-powered vehicle, maybe. So, what's his relationship to you?
Sylvester is my second cousin, 4 times removed. And but I'm a big believer in the wandering gene theory. And I got some of Sylvester's gene, I think.
So, give me 10 bikes that you've raced. The best bike you ever raced, what do you think?
Do I have to choose? I'm riding my 350 Harley Sprint here.
Right.
And that's right up there on among the best. Matchless G50, TT2 Ducati. I've got a 1946 Moto Guzzi Dondolino, which is a goof. And you know, I raced RD 350s back in the day, and TD3 Yamahas, and I love those. Love the 2-strokes too. I'm AC/DC. I'll go either way.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with you. Thank you, Dave. And now we're taking a look at the collection of Vespas that Larry Klairmont put together. Sears Roebuck was the largest distributor, the largest seller of Vespa in the 50s, in the 60s, and probably through the 70s. There weren't many dealers, but you went to Sears to get your Vespas. My brother Bob had a Vespa when he was in 8th grade to deliver newspapers. I restored that Vespa many years later, so I know quite a bit about these Vespa scooters. They were first built in 1946. Piaggio, the manufacturer, was building bombers during World War II for the Italians. So they could not build any more aircraft. They needed to build something, so they decided to build the scooters. Vespa is the Italian word for wasp. The first ones were 98 cc's, then they went up to 125 and 150 cc's. We are looking at one of the Vespas in Ron Hedlund's collection. Ron owned Vespa Chicago on Clark Street. He worked with me, restored my brother's 1956 Vespa. So I had an opportunity to look at Ron's 1956 Vespa. You can see it's a single cylinder, got a fan on the side to cool the cylinder, which is encapsulated. 125 or 150 cc, 3-speed or 4-speed transmission with a clutch. This one here, I believe, is Ron's 1958 Vespa. You can see the Allstate sticker on the front, or badge. So this one did come from Sears. The engine was mounted to the swing arm, so it was a single-sided vehicle, steel frame, and the front suspension was basically a aviation landing gear was the front suspension. That way the same wheel could be used on the front and the back. It had a single-sided swing arm in the back and a single-sided mount for the front wheel. Probably the most popular scooter ever made. Also in the collection is 3 Wizard motorbikes. The Wizard motorbike first was produced in 1939. They petitioned the Army or the military to let them produce these during the war. The first kit, just selling the engine kit that was then mounted to a bicycle, was $54 in 1939. In 1946, the kit cost $97. It was a 138 cc 4-stroke engine. We are now looking at a 1913 Buick M31 Speedster. Notice that the windshield is mounted to the steering shaft. That 35 horsepower engine, 34-inch wheels. It was the hot rod of the brass era. 1913 Buick. Next, we're going to look at a Rickenbacker. The Rickenbacker automobiles were the first automobiles to offer brakes in all 4 wheels. This is a 1926 H Super Sport. When they brought this car to the 1926 auto show in New York City, they claimed it was the fastest production car. It was the first 4-passenger car that could maintain a speed close to 100 miles per hour. Eddie Rickenbacker, the owner of the company, was a flying ace with 26 kills during World War I, and he also promoted the Indianapolis 500-mile race. We're now looking at a Studebaker Golden Hawk 1957. In 1957, this was the fastest production car you could buy. It was faster than the 57 Chevy Corvette, and it was faster than the Ford Thunderbird. The only car that could match it in top speed was the Chrysler 300B that had a Hemi engine. But it was the 1957 Studebaker Golden Hawk with the supercharged 289 cubic inch engine that was faster than all of them in the quarter mile and in 0 to 60. This is a lovely and very fast car. For more information on the Klairmont Collection Automotive Museum, it's KlairmontKollections.com. info@KlairmontKollections.com. For Owlhead Transportation Museum, it's owlsheads.org. And thanks for the footage of their running Roper steam-powered motorcycle. And to contact me, and I love to hear from my audience, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. And remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action, Dan Schmitt Politics, to learn what makes America great. And I highly encourage you to visit the World of Motorcycle Museum. They're in Winamac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson on Indiana Highway 39. But give them a call first at 574-896-3172. It's a great trip and a great collection of motorcycles. And pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package at Rich's Yamaha in Lockport, Illinois. But give them a call first at 815-838-8130. Their website is richesyamaha.com. But pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package. Now I'm letting you know about a few dates of important items coming up, important dates. These are swap meets. Buzz Walnick, I'll be putting races up later during the season. You can always go to walneckswap.com for more info. But if you want to learn about old motorcycles, nothing is better than going to a swap meet.